Welcome back to the discussion, Faster, Better, Cheaper, Maximizing Open Systems in Government, sponsored by Leidos on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com. My guest today, Jamie Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer, Advanced Solutions Group at Leidos. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy. In the federal government, it's not unusual to measure transition in terms of years. It sounds like it needs a sundial or something, People rarely put a price tag on this, though. It is expensive to do it that way. It's obvious that an incumbent vendor will not release its little monthly revenue without a fight. And I think this is the fight we're in, is making a transition, doing things differently in order to save money in the long run for the federal government.
Yeah, many of our customers have forced the fight. They've been paying big bills for a long time, and they have actually gone off and done a lot of the heavy lifting to open up their systems and define open architectures and force the fight because they had to. They had to lower the cost. They had to lower acquisition costs. They had to lower maintenance costs. So many of the customers realize how important this is and are willing to make the upfront investment to go off and achieve it.
Yeah, in some worlds they call this life cycle and software development life cycle cost, and incumbent vendors can resist that term and resist looking at long-term costs for these things. It sometimes it has to the customer itself has to force it, like you said, has to force what is the actual cost of the system over the last 10 years, and then it'd be millions of dollars.
Yeah, millions is the starting point. They can get very expensive to maintain over their life. And one of the things that we've realized with the open systems approach is that not only can you maintain them easier, but throughout their life you can integrate new capabilities easier, which makes them more relevant and more usable out in the field. So it does a couple of things. It solves a big cost problem, solves a maintenance problem, and also you can integrate new capabilities as you go.
When I think about software modules, I think of segments, and I think of this word, the medical terms, it's called interoperability. It seems to be very, very big over in HHS and hospital software. But interoperability has a lot more effect than just HHS. This is what we're seeking for here. That's why the API is more flexible to achieve interoperability, which can reduce cost.
Yes, and back to the architecture thing, when you're laying out a system and you're partitioning functionality, you really want to make it modular in a way so that the functionality is self-contained, so that as you introduce new capabilities, you don't have to upgrade every module. You want those modules to kind of stand on their own, and when you bring in a new capability, only have to update the ones that are affected by it. And the smaller that number is, the faster you can do it, and the cheaper it is to do it.
When we look at large systems, I once knew a software developer who had a background in ecology from UVA, and he was one of the best systems developers ever because he understood the relationships of, he called it an ecosystem. And so I think what you have is an ecosystem where there's a lot of different dependencies and a lot of different organizations, and there may be software tools that have to integrate with others. And so the whole idea of a better architecture can allow for the ecosystem to allow for the better speed and reducing cost.
Absolutely. When you're laying out how you want the system to come together, you need to have the big picture of how it's going to look in the end, begin with the end in mind sort of thing, and then lay out a design that enables you to bring in new capabilities along the way. And as we mentioned earlier, that's non-trivial. Doing a simple, elegant design takes a lot of complex, hard work.
When I think of technology today, and everyone seems to be talking about the Internet of Things and sensors and devices, the Air Force Research Lab's certainly interested in all kinds of sensors in the airplanes. But in that area of IoT, there's problems with standards and issues. And I think that maybe that's what your LEAF is trying to address, come up with some standards for open systems. Is that right?
Yeah, LEAF fits within some of the open standards that exist today. I'd say the most work that we're doing with AFRL, we do some work on the FACE side of things. That's all about advancing the standards around open systems. And we're working with other industry partners and our customers to define the standards so that each of the different services can enjoy this kind of system moving down the road.
And the DoD has white papers now on open systems architecture themselves, don't they?
They do. It really has caught on quite a bit, and many of our customers have enjoyed great savings already and have been able to bring in new capabilities in a much shorter time period. And so it really is getting a lot of traction. And so that's one of the reasons we make big investments in making sure we design systems that way.
One concept I think is building for the future, especially if you have children and you think about what their future should be. Probably should entail some form of college or something, or maybe some kind of financial plan for the future. But I think one way to look at this is to look at what's going to happen 3 or 4 years down the road. And open systems like you have, it allows for competition. It allows your company to prove itself every day in reducing costs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of a put your money where your mouth is kind
sure
of thing.
is.
And so if you start talking about an open system, you better make sure you can bring great capability to your customers, because it really does open up the competitive field. And so we're pretty confident that when we meet with a customer, we understand what their needs are, and that when we provide them an open system, we're going to be able to partner with whoever we need to partner with, or bring capabilities we already have to meet their needs.
So looking 4 or 5 years down the road, where do you see this whole idea evolving into?
I think it's taking good hold now, and I think you'll see more and more open systems down the road. I think that you'll see, as things like machine learning and artificial intelligence become more and more popular, I think you'll see architectures evolve to incorporate those capabilities as well. So I think, if you start thinking down the road and where we're going, for instance, I suspect there'll be a lot more autonomous vehicles fighting in our warfare down the road. I think you'll see architectures that have adapted to accommodate autonomy, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I think that's where it will go.
Over at the Air Force, they talk about MI, but they talk really about M to machine to machine. And they're looking at different sensors on aircraft that can communicate to avoid collisions and save money on all kinds of problems down the road. So I think when machines communicate with the machines, they can't have proprietary. It has to be some kind of a standard system, or it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it gets really complex really quickly when you think about the amount of machine-to-machine communication that has to occur. We build an autonomous ship for the Navy, and the number of computers on there that have to communicate with each other, and the number of ships that you may be interacting with when you're out there all by yourself becomes a pretty complex problem pretty quickly. And so having the right architecture is really important.
So just someone sitting at a desk with a checklist is not going to work, because it's so complex and so many sensors out there. It has to be structured in an environment that's open, so it's flexible as well. It saves money for the federal government.
Absolutely.
Well, great. I'd like to thank today's guest, Jamie Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer, Advanced Solutions Group at Leidos. I'm John Gilroy on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsradio.com and search Leidos Open Systems.